My name is Tiffany King, and I'm 30 years old.
I never imagined I would be telling a story like this.
3 days. That's how long I was engaged before the man I loved for 8 years erased me from his life. Daniel Rivera proposed to me on a quiet Saturday evening. Nothing flashy, just us, the lake where we used to study in college, and the same nervous smile he had when he first kissed me at 22. He knelt down with hands that were slightly shaking. Tiffany, he said, his voice thick, let's stop pretending we're not already a family. I laughed through tears. Of course I said yes. 8 years. We had survived job losses, my father's surgery, his mother's cancer scare, moving apartments twice, financial disasters, even a brief period where we almost broke up because we both felt stuck in life. But we always came back. Always. That night, he talked about guest lists, about a small ceremony, about buying a house outside the city. He was the one who pushed for the proposal, the one who insisted we were ready. 3 days later, he disappeared. At first, I thought it was a joke. Then I thought maybe he needed space. Then I thought maybe he'd been in an accident. His phone went straight to voicemail. His Instagram vanished. Facebook gone. Even LinkedIn deactivated. I went to his apartment. I have an emergency key, or at least I had one. The key didn't work. The lock had been changed. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the door like it might suddenly apologize. That was the moment something cracked inside my chest. If he needed space, why change the lock? Why close the door so completely? I drove to his parents' house that same night. The lights were on. I saw shadows move behind the curtains. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. I heard footsteps. Still nothing. Mrs. Rivera, I called. It's Tiffany. Silence. I knew they were inside. I could feel it. After 10 minutes of knocking, I stood on their porch shaking. Not from cold, but from humiliation. They were avoiding me. Daniel's friends claimed they didn't know anything. Some said he had taken a leave from work. Others said he went on a trip. No one had answers. It felt like the earth had swallowed him whole. And I swear to you, there had been no fight, no betrayal, no warning. The only unusual thing in the weeks before the proposal had been Marcus Hale's death. Marcus had been a friend of mine since college. He passed away suddenly, officially ruled an overdose, a mix of alcohol and medication. They called it suicide. Daniel held me while I cried. He told me grief does strange things to people. He comforted me. There was no jealousy, no tension, nothing. So why was he gone? I barely slept. I replayed every conversation in my head, every text, every look. Had I missed something? Was he afraid of commitment? No. Daniel was not a coward. He was calm, responsible. If something bothered him, he talked about it, which meant someone had told him something. Someone had filled his head with lies. And there was only one person who had always hovered quietly in the background. Lucy Carter, his ex-girlfriend. She had always been polite to me, too polite. The kind of polite that feels rehearsed. I remembered the way she looked at him during group dinners, the subtle softness in her eyes. And suddenly the silence from his parents made sense. What if Lucy had found something? Or worse, what if she made something up? Almost a month passed before I finally saw him again. And what happened next destroyed whatever hope I had left. I saw Daniel on a Tuesday. Not in some dramatic place like a wedding venue or a hospital hallway. Just outside a grocery store. The kind of ordinary setting that makes you feel even crazier for how your life is collapsing in public. He was walking towards his car with 2 paper bags in his hands. He looked normal. Clean haircut, dark jacket, the same watch I bought him for our 7th anniversary. For half a second, my heart actually lifted. My brain didn't even catch up before my body moved. Daniel, I called out, already running. I don't know what I expected. Maybe he'd look relieved. Maybe he'd say he was sorry, that he'd been overwhelmed, that something happened and he didn't know how to tell me. Maybe he'd pull me into his arms and I'd finally breathe again. But when I got close, he stepped away. Not subtly, not politely. He physically dodged me, like my touch might burn him. I froze mid-step. The grocery store sliding doors hissed behind us. A couple walked past, chatting. Someone laughed on the sidewalk. And Daniel looked at me like I was a mistake he wished he could erase. My voice came out thin. Oh my God, you're okay. Give me my ring back. That was it. No hello, no explanation, no apology. Just those 5 words, spoken with a coldness I didn't recognize. I stared at him. What? Daniel, what are you talking about? Why did you? His jaw tightened. Don't do that. Do what? Don't act confused, he snapped, his voice low but sharp. Because if anyone's confused here, it's me. I was the idiot. The word idiot hit me like a slap. People were looking now, not fully staring, but glancing, sensing tension the way animals sense thunder in the air. I stepped closer again, careful this time, like he was a wild thing.
Daniel, please, tell me what's happening. If someone told you something.
He cut me off with a bitter laugh that didn't sound like him at all. Someone told me something, he repeated, like the words tasted disgusting. Yeah, you could say that. My throat tightened. Who? Lucy? His eyes flicked just for a second, like a reflex, like her name poked a bruise, and that tiny reaction was enough to make my stomach drop. I reached for his sleeve, desperate.
Daniel, please, you know me. 8 years. Look at me. Do you really think I'd...
Stop, he said louder now. His face was tight, angry, but underneath it, I saw something worse. Disgust. He looked at me like I was something he couldn't unsee, and that broke me more than anger ever could. I don't understand, I whispered. You proposed. You said you wanted this. You said we were already a family.
He stepped closer, finally, but only to speak in a voice so controlled it scared me.
I proposed to the person I thought you were. I felt my knees weaken. Daniel? He stared at me for a long moment, like he was deciding whether I deserved words. Then he shook his head. Just give me the ring back, Tiffany. Humiliation crawled up my neck, hot and painful. Not until you tell me why, I said, and my voice surprised even me. It sounded steadier than I felt.
His eyes narrowed. You really want to do this here?
Yes, I said, because I couldn't take another night of crying into my pillow with no answers. I want to know why you disappeared like I meant nothing. I want to know why your parents wouldn't open the door. I want to know why you changed your locks. He exhaled through his nose like he was trying not to explode. Then he leaned in slightly and said, because I finally saw who you are. A cold wave rolled through my body.
What does that mean?
He didn't answer. He just stared at me, shook his head again, turned around, and walked to his car. I followed, because my pride was already dead anyway. Daniel, I called after him, please, tell me what you think you know. He opened the car door, paused, and looked over his shoulder. His eyes were dead. You don't get to beg for honesty, he said. Not after what you did. And then he got into his car and drove away. I stood in the parking lot with my hands shaking, trying to breathe, trying not to fall apart in front of strangers. Not after what you did. I replayed it again and again as I drove home. What I did, what I did, what I did. My mind went in circles until it landed, again, on the only person who had ever made Daniel doubt me, Lucy Carter. I remembered her quiet smile, the way she always offered Daniel a drink first, the way she would say my name like she was tasting it. I remembered one thing, something I hadn't thought about in years. A night, long ago, when Lucy had gotten drunk at a party and pulled Daniel aside. I only caught the last part. You'll regret it, she'd whispered to him. You don't know who she really is. At the time, Daniel laughed it off. Now he wasn't laughing. I went home and sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing my jacket, still holding my phone like it might finally ring. I typed message after message to him and deleted them. Finally, I sent one sentence. Please, tell me what you think I did. It stayed delivered. No reply. That night, I took the ring off and stared at it on my palm. The diamond that had made me cry happy tears now looked like an accusation. And for the first time, the thought slid through my mind like a blade. What if someone really did show him something? Something he believed. Something I didn't even know existed. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of notifications. People were tagging me, messaging me, asking questions. Because Daniel had posted a long update from his account, reactivated just long enough to destroy me. And the first line of it made my stomach drop so hard I thought I might throw up. She cheated on me, and the man she cheated with is dead. I don't think anything prepares you for the moment your name becomes a headline in someone else's story. Daniel's post wasn't emotional. It wasn't chaotic. It was calm. Too calm. And that somehow made it worse. She cheated on me, and the man she cheated with is dead. I read it 3 times before I could even process the words. He didn't write my name, but everyone knew. 8 years together. Public proposal. Public disappearance. It didn't take a detective to connect the dots. My hands trembled as I kept reading. He said he found out by accident that Marcus Hale, my friend, hadn't just been my friend. That weeks before he died, Marcus had been sending me messages saying he wanted something serious, that he couldn't stand seeing me with Daniel, that he was willing to fight for me. And according to Daniel, I hadn't shut him down clearly. He wrote that Marcus's best friend had found screenshots, that those screenshots were shown to another friend. That friend told him. 3 days after he proposed, 3 days after I said yes, I felt like I was suffocating. Because yes, Marcus had texted me. But not the way Daniel was describing it. Marcus had been spiraling before he died, drinking too much, talking about how he felt stuck in life, talking about regrets. One night, he sent me a long message saying he used to have feelings for me, Used to, I responded carefully. I told him I cared about him, but only as a friend. I told him I loved Daniel. I told him there was nothing to fight for. I remember typing that sentence. There's nothing to fight for. But Daniel's post painted a different picture. He wrote that in the messages. Marcus said, "When Daniel finds out, he'll leave you, and then you'll finally be free." And according to him, my reply was, "I've already made my choice." Daniel interpreted that as choosing Marcus. But that wasn't what I meant. I meant I chose Daniel. I always chose Daniel. But without context, those words could be twisted. And whoever showed him those screenshots made sure they were twisted. He also wrote something else. Something that made my blood run cold. Marcus's death. Officially ruled an overdose. Alcohol and medication. Closed as suicide. But according to Daniel, Marcus's best friend believed it wasn't that simple. That I might have had something to do with it. That I pushed Marcus emotionally. That maybe I broke him. My vision blurred reading that part. The idea that Daniel could even entertain something like that. That he could look at me and see not just a cheater, but someone capable of driving a man to death. It shattered something inside me. He admitted in the post that he didn't confront me because he couldn't even look at me. That he felt repulsed. That I didn't deserve closure. He said ghosting me was intentional. He blocked me everywhere. Sometimes unblocked me just to let my messages show as delivered. To let me know he saw them. To let me feel ignored. To let her taste a little of what betrayal feels like. That line hit the hardest. Because I wasn't betraying him. And I didn't know how to prove it. He ended the post by saying he accepted a 6-month international transfer at work. That he left the country without telling me. That his parents knew everything. That when I went to their house, they were disappointed in me. Ashamed. I dropped my phone onto the bed and covered my face. Ashamed. After 8 years, that's what I had become to them. My phone kept buzzing. Messages poured in. Some supportive. Some accusing. Some asking if it was true. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I opened my chat with Marcus. Scrolled up. Up. Until I found the conversation from weeks before he died. And there it was. Marcus, I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. I'd fight for you if I had a chance. Me. Marcus, stop. I care about you, but not like that. I've already made my choice. Daniel. That was the choice. The message right after that, the one Daniel never mentioned, was this. Please don't do anything stupid. You're not alone, but you have to respect my relationship. Why wasn't that part in the screenshots? Why was there only the ambiguous line? Why not the rejection? My stomach twisted. Someone cropped it. Someone removed context. And I could think of only one person who had reason to do that. Lucy Carter, Daniel's ex. Lucy had always known Marcus casually. Same social circle, same events. And Marcus's best friend, the one who supposedly showed the screenshots, was close to Lucy. Too close. I suddenly remembered something Daniel once told me, years ago. Lucy hated feeling replaced. She didn't fight loudly. She fought quietly. Strategically. I picked up my phone again and typed Daniel a message. Not begging this time. Not emotional. Just simple. You didn't see the full conversation. Delivered. No response. But this time I didn't cry. Because for the first time since he disappeared, I wasn't just confused. I was angry. If Daniel truly believed I cheated, then someone made sure he believed it. Someone handed him proof designed to hurt. And if Lucy had anything to do with that, then this wasn't just about heartbreak. It was manipulation. And maybe even something darker. Because Marcus's death, suddenly it didn't feel like a closed chapter anymore. Grief does strange things to memory. When someone dies, the past becomes fragile. Like glass you're afraid to touch. But anger? Anger sharpens everything. The day after Daniel's post, I stopped crying and started thinking. Marcus's best friend, Ethan, was the one who found the screenshots. Ethan, who had barely spoken to Marcus for months before his death. Ethan, who suddenly became very vocal after Daniel proposed to me. And Ethan, who had been seen more than once with Lucy Carter at social events. Too many coincidences. I didn't confront Lucy immediately. I needed something solid first. So I did something Daniel would have called dramatic if we were still together. I went to Marcus's sister. She was the only person in his family who still answered my calls. When she opened the door, her eyes were red. They had never really believed the suicide narrative. He wasn't stable, she admitted, but he wasn't that lost. We sat in her kitchen for 2 hours, and then she told me something that made my skin prickle. Marcus had complained weeks before his death that someone had been digging into his phone. He thought it was paranoia at first, but he changed his passwords twice. The second time, he mentioned that Lucy had asked to borrow his phone at a gathering because hers was dead. I felt my pulse in my ears. Did he say why that bothered him, I asked. His sister hesitated. He said Lucy asked weird questions about you and Daniel, about whether you ever fought, about whether you were happy. I swallowed. Lucy and I were never friends. We were polite, but distant. And now suddenly she had taken interest in my relationship. I asked if Marcus had ever talked about the messages he sent me. His sister nodded. He told me he confessed feelings. He said you shut him down gently. He said he felt embarrassed. Embarrassed. Not hopeful. Not encouraged. Embarrassed. That didn't match Daniel's version at all. That night, I went back through every memory. Lucy's subtle comments over the years. The way she would say things like, "You're lucky Daniel forgives easily." Forgives what? The time she once told me, half smiling, "You know he deserves someone loyal." At the time, I brushed it off as leftover bitterness. Now it felt like a warning shot. Or maybe a threat. I decided to confront her. Not publicly. Not dramatically. Just directly. I found her at a cafe 2 days later. She looked calm. Too calm. When she saw me, her eyebrows lifted slightly, but she didn't look surprised. "Tiffany," she said sweetly, "I was wondering when you'd show up." That alone told me everything. "You showed Daniel the screenshots," I said quietly. She stirred her coffee. I showed him what he deserved to see. "You cropped them." Her smile didn't falter. I showed him the truth. "No," I said, leaning forward. "You showed him part of it." She tilted her head. Context doesn't change intent. I felt heat rise up my spine. I rejected Marcus. Lucy's eyes flickered, just briefly, but she recovered fast. "Maybe you did," she said. "Eventually." There it was. Eventually. Meaning she was implying I entertained it first. Which wasn't true. But perception is powerful. "Why?" I asked her. "Why would you do that?" She finally looked directly at me. And for the first time, the softness was gone. "Because he deserves to know who he was marrying." I laughed, but it came out broken. "And you just happened to be the one to enlighten him?" "He came to me," she replied smoothly. "He was already suspicious." That was a lie. Daniel wasn't suspicious. He was planning our future. Unless someone planted doubt before the screenshots ever appeared. I studied her face. She wasn't emotional. She wasn't angry. She looked satisfied. And that's when something else clicked. Marcus's death. The timing. The proposal. 3 days later, Daniel finds out. What if Lucy didn't just show him screenshots? What if she waited for the perfect moment? "What did you tell Ethan?" I asked. She paused, only for half a second. But it was enough. "I didn't tell Ethan anything," she replied. "Too quick. Too rehearsed." "You wanted Daniel back," I said softly. Her jaw tightened. "You lost him 8 years ago." Her hand gripped her cup harder. "Some people," she said carefully, "realize too late what they walked away from." "And some people," I replied, "never stop trying to sabotage what they can't have." Silence stretched between us. She didn't deny it. She didn't confirm it. She simply stood up, adjusted her coat, and said, "If Daniel wanted you, Tiffany, he'd be here." Then she walked out. I sat there for several minutes, replaying her expression. There was one thing she hadn't anticipated. I wasn't broken anymore. I was suspicious. And suspicion can be just as dangerous as heartbreak. That night, I received an anonymous email. No name. No signature. Just one attachment. A longer version of the screenshot. The part Daniel never saw. My rejection. My warning to Marcus. And one more message Marcus sent after that. One I had forgotten. "Lucy says you'll eventually leave him anyway. She says you're not as loyal as he thinks." My hands went cold. Lucy had been talking to Marcus about me. About Daniel. Planting seeds. And now Marcus was dead. Daniel hated me. And Lucy was quietly waiting. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. And if Lucy thought she had already won, she didn't know me. 5 months later, Daniel came back to the country. I didn't know the exact date. I only knew because someone tagged him in a photo at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. He looked thinner, harder, but not happier. And seated 2 chairs away from him, Lucy Carter. Of course. The comments under the photo were subtle but loaded. Some stories come full circle, always meant to be. Timing is everything. I didn't comment. I didn't call. But something inside me shifted. I had the extended screenshots now. I had proof Lucy manipulated context. I even traced the anonymous email back to Marcus's sister. She admitted she sent it after Ethan confessed he felt guilty. Ethan had admitted Lucy encouraged him to show Daniel only what mattered. Not the whole truth. But Daniel didn't know that. Not yet. I decided I wouldn't chase him. If he wanted the truth, he would have to face it. But Lucy didn't like uncertainty. She didn't like not being in control. A week later, I ran into them at a cafe downtown. Not by accident. Lucy looked almost pleased to see me. Daniel looked uncomfortable. "Tiffany," he said stiffly. I nodded. "Daniel." Lucy leaned back in her chair. "We were just talking about you." I raised an eyebrow. "I doubt that." She smiled thinly. "Closure is important. For people who deserve it," I replied calmly. Daniel's eyes flickered between us. He looked tired, conflicted. Lucy touched his arm lightly. A gesture so subtle most people wouldn't notice. But I did.
And so did he.
He pulled his arm back slightly. That was the first crack. Lucy noticed too. Her smile tightened. You know, she said lightly, it's interesting how some people rewrite history when they're caught.
I stepped closer to their table.
Do you mean cropping screenshots? I asked.
Daniel's head snapped toward me.
What? Lucy's expression froze, just for a fraction of a second.
I held his gaze. You didn't see everything?
Daniel stood slowly.
What are you talking about?
I took my phone out and placed it on the table between us. The full conversation, including my rejection, including Marcus quoting Lucy. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. Daniel scrolled. His face drained of color. Lucy stood up abruptly.
This is ridiculous. You can fake anything.
I didn't send that to you, I said quietly to Daniel. I didn't fight publicly. I didn't scream. I didn't beg, because I knew if you believed that version of me, you'd never believe my words. Daniel kept scrolling. He reached the line where Marcus wrote, Lucy says you'll leave him eventually. His jaw clenched. He looked at Lucy. She laughed nervously. Marcus was unstable. You know that. He said a lot of things. Daniel's voice was low, dangerous. Did you talk to him? Lucy hesitated. And hesitation is louder than confession. He was our friend, she replied carefully. I was concerned. Concerned enough to borrow his phone? I asked. Her eyes flashed at me. Daniel looked between us again, realization dawning slowly, painfully. Lucy's composure cracked first. She turned to me, her voice rising. You're twisting this because you got caught. You cheated. I didn't, I said steadily. She emotionally entertained him, Lucy shot back at Daniel. You saw the messages. I saw what you showed me, Daniel replied. And there it was. The second crack. Lucy stepped closer to him. After everything she did, you're doubting me? He looked at her, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. I don't know what to believe anymore. Lucy's face hardened. This wasn't going the way she expected. You're unbelievable, she snapped, not at me, but at him. I defended you. I protected you from humiliation. By humiliating her? Daniel asked. People were staring now. Whispers. Phones subtly raised. Lucy hated losing control. And when she loses control, she lashes out. She pointed at me. She made Marcus obsessed with her. She played both sides. I rejected him, I replied calmly. And you know that. Lucy's breathing became sharp. Then she said something that exposed everything. You never deserved him anyway. Not she hurt you. Not she betrayed you. Just possession. Deserved. Daniel's expression changed. Lucy realized too late. She grabbed her purse. Fine, believe her. See how that ends for you. And she walked out of the cafe, heels striking hard against the floor. Silence lingered between Daniel and me. He looked exhausted. I didn't want to believe it, he admitted quietly. You wanted it to make sense, I said. He nodded faintly. I was angry, he whispered. And it was easier to blame you than to question everything. That hurt, but it was honest. He looked up at me. Why didn't you fight harder? I swallowed. Because I shouldn't have to prove I didn't betray someone who knows me. He closed his eyes briefly. And for the first time in months, I saw regret. But regret doesn't automatically rebuild trust. I don't know what we are anymore, he admitted. Neither do I said. And that was the truth. Lucy didn't return to our social circle after that day. Rumors spread quickly. Not about me. About her. About manipulation. About jealousy. About strategy. But damage doesn't reverse just because the truth surfaces. Daniel and I were standing in the aftermath of something broken. And the real question wasn't whether Lucy lied. The real question was whether we could survive what doubt had already done to us. There's something people don't talk about enough. Truth doesn't magically fix betrayal. Sometimes it just shifts it. Lucy disappeared from our circle almost immediately after the cafe confrontation. She stopped attending events, stopped posting, stopped responding to group chats. But silence doesn't erase damage. Daniel and I met a week later. Not at the lake, not somewhere nostalgic. Just a quiet park bench halfway between our apartments. Neutral territory. He looked different up close. Not just tired, older, like the past 6 months had carved something permanent into him. I confronted Ethan, he said without greeting. I nodded slowly. And? I asked. He admitted Lucy told him which parts of the screenshots to send me. Daniel's jaw tightened. He said she told him the rejection didn't matter. That intent was what mattered. I let out a slow breath. Intent. Such a dangerous word when twisted. She told me she just wanted to protect me, Daniel continued. She said you emotionally cheated, that you entertained him long enough to create hope. I shut him down the same night, I replied softly. I told him there was nothing to fight for. I know, Daniel said, and that I know carried weight. He ran his hands over his face. When I read those messages, it felt like my entire life was a lie. And Marcus dying right after, it felt like proof, like something tragic and dirty had happened behind my back. I didn't interrupt. Because I needed to hear all of it. I felt stupid, he admitted. I proposed to you while you were grieving another man. I was grieving a friend, I said firmly, and you knew that. I thought I did. Silence stretched between us. Not hostile, just heavy. I was angry, he continued. But underneath that, I was scared. 8 years, Tiffany. 8 years. If that wasn't real, then what was? It was real, I said. He looked at me, searching. And when you ghosted me, I asked quietly, was that real too? He winced. I wanted you to hurt, he admitted. I wanted you to feel abandoned the way I felt blindsided. That honesty cut deeper than excuses would have. You changed the locks, I whispered. I didn't trust myself not to come back, he said. That stunned me. He looked away. If I had seen you before I left the country, I might have forgiven you without answers. And I needed answers. I almost laughed at the irony. Instead of confronting me, he ran. Instead of asking, he punished. Instead of doubting Lucy, he doubted me. I should have talked to you, he said finally. Yes, I replied. Not angrily, just factually. A long pause. Then he asked the question that had been sitting between us since the cafe. Can we fix this? And that's when I realized something important. The villain of our story wasn't Lucy. Not entirely. She manipulated. She twisted. She planted doubt. But doubt only grows where trust is fragile. If Daniel could believe I was capable of betrayal without even asking me, then something between us had already been cracked. I don't know, I said honestly. He nodded, like he expected that. I loved you, he said quietly. I loved you too, I replied. The past tense hung in the air like smoke. We didn't yell. We didn't cry. There was no dramatic embrace. Just two people sitting on a bench, realizing that sometimes the biggest damage isn't what someone else does to you. It's what you do to each other when fear takes over. I need time, I said finally. To rebuild trust, he asked. To decide if it can be rebuilt, I answered. He accepted that. And that might have been the most mature thing either of us had done in months. As for Lucy, she tried once to reach out. A short message. I never meant for it to go that far. I didn't respond. Because whether she meant it or not, it did go that far. Marcus was still dead. Daniel and I were still broken. And love, once shaken by suspicion, never feels the same again. Months later, Daniel and I tried again. Slowly. Carefully. No engagement ring. No promises about forever. Just conversations. Transparency. Awkward rebuilding. Some days feel hopeful. Some days feel fragile. But here's what I've learned. Love isn't destroyed by lies alone. It's destroyed when silence replaces communication. When pride replaces vulnerability. When someone decides punishment is easier than truth. Lucy thought she won when Daniel left me. But what she really exposed was something we had to confront anyway. Whether our trust was strong enough to survive doubt. We're still figuring that out. And maybe that's the most honest ending I can give you. Because sometimes love doesn't end with a dramatic explosion. Sometimes it ends, or survives, quietly,